Everybody. Please give a warm welcome to Chloe Messdaghi, speaking on how to fix the diversity gap in cybersecurity.
Hi, everyone. Whoa, that was loud. And we almost lost the laptop. That's cool. All right. Everyone that's coming in new, come towards the front. Also, who here does not have a partner? Raise your hand. You need a partner for this activity that we're going to do some point today. I see some people that don't have partners, but we'll get to you soon, I promise. All right. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself because you probably don't know who I am. My name is Chloe Messdaghi, and I work for Bugcrowd. Who here has heard of Bugcrowd? Raise your hand. Cool. I'm a security researcher advocate, so I tend to fight for rights for security researchers, like many of you guys in the audience. Who here is a hacker? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you guys are program managers? Raise your hand. All right, cool. I'm also a Disclose IO supporter. I believe in safe harbor for hackers. I do have some lovely purple stickers here of Disclose IO you should check out. Before I started working at Bugcrowd, I was a social engineer, but I also was a humanitarian rights activist. And I also started an organization with Tanya Janka called Women in Security, also known as WOSEC. And also I tend to mentor underrepresented people in InfoSec, board member for 4 nonprofits, and I started a new Slack workplace for women hackers. So if you know any women that are hackers, send me their email. I will add them to it. It's a really good community. Other than that, I am a nonprofit founder called Drop Labels, and I am a parent to this little one right here. This is Sherlock. You'll see Sherlock throughout the whole thing because she is my little fox. So how are we going to do this? We're going to kind of dive into some of the stats right now in InfoSec, and then follow it with a little bit about how your brain functions. Then we're going to do an activity. So say hello to your partner next to you because you're going to get to know them very well. We'll do some obstacle storytelling and then followed with how to improve the situation that we're in. So first of all, women represent about 11% of InfoSec space. That means anything in marketing, sales, anything in InfoSec itself. Minorities is less than 12%. And believe it or not, did you know that only 4% of hackers are women? So we have a 1.5 million shortage right now to this day, and underrepresented persons are more likely to get let go or fired, and also they don't get to go beyond a manager title. So we're going to dive into why that is. In my case, I believe it's biases that keeps us there. So clearly we have a diversity and inclusion problem here. And more companies are realizing that the only way to get great people is to invest in workforce, diversity, and social responsibility. Companies seeking to become more inclusive in their hiring should examine and question their own assumptions and unintentional biases in their hiring process. So let's start examining and questioning our biases, shall we? So there's 2 parts of this. The first part is when you see someone who you do not know or doesn't look familiar, does not wear the clothes that you wear, you might automatically feel like this person might be a threat. And the reason for that is because they don't look like you. We also have biases because they're socially constructed, meaning that we were taught when we were young in school, or we were taught through social media or any sort of media that we should not be friends with this person. So what happens is in that part, there's this part of your brain called the amygdala. It's a very small part, like this small, even smaller than that, actually. And what it does, it's unconscious decision making that's occurring. But the good news, it does check in. So then it goes to the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is like the CEO of your brain. It tells the amygdala it needs to chill or it needs to act. So this is a very conscious decision-making process now. So the whole thing is that you can question stereotypes and beliefs of another person in this moment. So the most important thing to note is that you can always question the way you think of another person. But the real thing of all of this is that the best way to break through from that is actually through people's stories, hearing who they are, because it then questions your belief of another person. Because if we don't, bad things kind of happen. And the sound of the video might not work, so I'm going to put my microphone by the stereo and hopefully it works for you.
I feel labels keep our society divided. A label that I've always felt held me back, or at least sometimes would bring me down, is because I'm an African American, I'm some kind of criminal. They see me as African American male, and they instantly get nervous. The wife will clutch their purse or their husband's arm a little more. They don't make it a point to be discreet while they're staring at my every move, not knowing that I'm on my way to class because I'm about to finish my master's, not knowing I already have a bachelor's degree. Join me and many others in the Drop Labels campaign by posting your experiences with labels at droplabels.org.
All right, raise your hand if you could hear that. Okay. That was the loudest it could go. But basically, if anyone who did not hear it, this guy was talking about how like he would walk down a street and he would notice that someone would clutch their purse a little bit closer to them because they saw him as a criminal because of he's African American. So I was talking about that and how his story and how it impacts him because everyone targets him in a certain way. We're going to do that activity. So raise your hand if you have a partner. Raise your hand if you need a partner. Okay, there are some people here. The person with the red bag, I hope you don't mind me standing you out. There's someone else with another bag over in the back. Can you guys meet each other in the middle? Excellent. Come on over. I don't bite, but you need to have a partner for this to work. Come on. You can move up in the close. Cool. All right. Now, what's going to end up happening is we're going to do a little quick game. So this game you might know is quite familiar. Rock, paper, scissors. Everyone knows rock, paper, scissors? All right. So out of 3, you're going to play rock, paper, scissors with your partner. All right? And go. Out of 3. I feel generous today. All right. Who won? Raise your hand. Who won here? You tied? Okay, break a tie quickly. Let's do this. Okay. All right. Winners, raise your hands. Not so much winners, raise your hands. All right, so winners, you're A's, not so winners, B's. But trust me, B's, you're going to feel like a winner. Trust me on this. All right, A's, this is what's going to end up happening. Are you ready? You have to listen very closely. You're going to talk for 5 minutes about anything about yourself. B's, you're going to listen. You cannot say a single word. You cannot be like, oh my God, me too. You cannot do that. You have to be completely quiet. You can nod your head if you want to, but you're going to sit there quietly for 5 minutes while this person talks about anything they feel like. Now, this is the important part. B's, the most important part for you is to catch yourself thinking about this other person. All right? Because that's when you're actually not listening anymore. All right? So I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. Take a deep breath. A's, don't worry. This is going to be fun for you. It's awkward at first, but it'll be fun. B's, you ready to be quiet and to get to know your partner? All right, and begin. Can you hear me? Clap your hands once. If you can hear me, clap your hands twice. If you can hear me, clap your hands 3 times. Lovely. All right, how awkward was that? A little awkward or a lot awkward? Like, What were some thoughts that went through your head? Any volunteers? Right, exactly. I think you had a question in the front. Oh yeah, I forgot to leave that part out. You weren't supposed to talk about the other person's stuff, but that's cool. Don't worry about it. That would have been harder because I think people always like cheat on that one anyway because it's like hard not to. But did you feel at any point like, oh my God, this stranger is kind of connected to me. We have something in common. Did we all have that in the room? Yeah? At least one item? Okay, see that one item can change everything, believe it or not. Can make us best friends. If you really want to do this and really social engineer someone, do it for 8 minutes. You can find out any single thing about a person. 8 minutes. Do it at work. Get to know your boss a little bit better. Okay. Yeah. So it'd be like, hey, I had this really cool thing I learned at a conference where we sit down and we talk, but I listen for 8 minutes while you talk. See how that goes down. Any other comments about how this activity was? Yes? Right, because we're kind of been trained to react, to always say something in return, right? And I don't feel like that means that we're actively listening, because instead we're thinking, what do I say next? Right? What else? Yes? Exactly. Tell me about yourself. That's like one of those hard ones. Like, well, can you ask me a better question? Can you ask me a more detailed one? Like, what do you want to know exactly? If we could just get there, that'd be great. Anything else? All right, cool. So as finding out about the person next to you is through stories. They probably told you, I grew up at this place, or I live here, or I work here. You're hearing a story, and the stories are what make the difference. Research has shown that it's stories itself that change the way we think about another person. We start thinking, oh wait, this person's this story? I was totally wrong on my prejudice and my biases. I'm going to tell you some stories. The names have been changed, so you will never know who this person is. Rebecca is a CISO at a very well-known company, and by the way, this is all in InfoSec, okay? And so Rebecca goes to her boss, and it's like, why am I not on the board? He turns around and is like, well, you're not technical enough. She's like, what do you mean I'm not technical enough? I have a PhD in electrical engineering. How am I not technical enough? The other thing is everyone else on the board itself had no technical degrees. Andrew's an African American, and he's at a startup. It's an InfoSec startup, and he was basically in the lunchroom when a bunch of guys were around the table, white guys that is, around the table were saying, you know what we should do? We should throw a hip-hop party. We'll do cornrows, get gold chains, gold teeth, let's go all out. And he just stood there like, I don't know what to do. I'm the only African American here at this company. There is no HR, and I feel really uncomfortable. Not just that, they don't even have MLK Day off. Crystal works for a very well-known company. I cannot say out loud, but it's kind of something like this on the phone. And anyway, she's been a security manager for 20 years and has yet to be promoted. Jennifer is a security researcher, and basically before Jennifer was Jennifer, she was John. And John at the time was always hearing from other women about how they were being discriminated in the office. And there's stories of how they were in a boardroom or in any situations where you're in a conference and everyone would ignore you, or they would shove your ideas down, way down. And John didn't really think this through. But when he went through a transition and became Jennifer, Jennifer started realizing that those things were actually very much true. Next thing she knew was that she was not being invited to things. She wasn't being taken seriously at work, that she had to leave the company because no one was respecting what she was saying, even though her talents are still very true. Remy is a security engineer, and she reported about being sexually assaulted by her manager to HR. Within 1 week, they found something on her saying that she wasn't doing enough work and fired her. This is a very common occurrence, by the way. If you were to report anything on gender discrimination or sexual assault, sexual harassment, and whatnot, don't ever do it alone. Do it with another person. I've heard too many stories of women being actually let go because of it. And last but not least, my story. So I but more like B-Sides SF. I basically shared the story of me, how I almost left InfoSec. So about a year ago, a little bit over a year, I decided to do a blog for International Women's Day and talking about the lack of women in InfoSec. So I interviewed a bunch of different women from all different positions in InfoSec, and they told me their stories and how they were about to leave. And at that moment, it just went through one ear, but kind of stayed in the back, and I never thought about it until I went to RSA. I went to RSA last year, and when I was there, suddenly I looked around the room, and there's like hundreds of men in there, and only 2 other women. And at that moment, I'm like, please say you're not an executive assistant. Please say you're not an executive assistant. And they both were. And I was just like, okay, all right, well, it's just maybe this talk. I go down out of the room, the conference room, and I walk down the corridor, and there's a men's restroom on the left side. On the right side, there's a woman's. And the men's has a long line. And I'm like, okay, maybe the line is inside for the women's restroom. So I go in the women's restroom, and there's no one in there. That's right, ladies. Join InfoSec. There's never a bathroom line at a conference. And I was just like, okay, something doesn't feel right. I remember walking back to my hotel room that same day. And when I was walking back, I went into like the bathroom washing my hands, and I look up into the mirror, and I'm like, something doesn't feel right. And then that was when a blindfold was just lifted, and I just broke down crying. And it wasn't like a soft cry, it was like a really ugly cry, like I was curled up on the floor, like why am I in this field if no one respects me kind of thing. And it was because I didn't have a network. That was the thing. But at that moment I decided I'm going to leave. So I started looking elsewhere. I was going to take a job in a different tech. And about June, I went to a conference called Day of Security. Has anyone heard of Day of Security? Okay, cool. I like this. At least one person. Yes. Okay, so Day of Security, you walk in the room, there's like 200 women in there, and they're all in InfoSec. And it was the first time ever where I felt like I have people behind me. I had a support network suddenly. And at that moment, I was like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to stay here until the bathroom lines are exactly the same as the men's. So I basically then went to Las Vegas because people that I talked to for the blog entry before, I contacted him saying, I was about to leave, but I want to stay, but I need to figure out a way how to get to Vegas. I want to go for DEF CON, I want to go to Black Hat, I want to go to B-Sides Las Vegas. And next thing I know, I checked my email, I had flights, I had hotels, everything was paid for, and this was men and women, by the way. They're like, we don't want to see you go. And so I went there, I gave my first talk, which is the talk you're experiencing right now. It was my first talk ever, and it's changed dramatically since then. But I also happened to decide to social engineer my way into every bug crowd event. So at the last one, it was a pool party, and I remember going up to Casey, who's the founder of Bug Crowd, and we sat at the pool at 1:30 in the morning talking about diversity and inclusion in InfoSec, and I was basically at that moment, I was like, okay, I want to work here. So at the end of the night, I had a job. And it was great, and I still love it today. But also at that moment, I also created Women in Security with Tanya and some other great women. And honestly, now we have these chapters that are growing all around the world. And now we have a Slack workplace called Women Hackers. So any ladies in here that want to be hackers or are hackers, DM me, I will help you out. And any people in here that know any women, really refer them because they need to support more than ever before. So what have we learned about stories? They change our perspectives and beliefs. It removes blindfolds and it can bring awareness. But most importantly, it makes us uncomfortable. And that is the most important part, is that we have to get uncomfortable to really make a difference. So how do we apply stories and cognitive science to solve this gap? Sorry, I have allergies. They're driving me insane today. Volunteering. Okay, volunteering is one of the greatest things you could do to promote InfoSec. So start at a very young age. Because when I was like in 6th grade, I remember going up to my teacher and I'm like, I want to be a hacker. And he's like, that's so adorable, but that's for boys. So make sure to get out there as early as possible because there's a bunch of talent out there that really could use it. Get involved in outreach and mentoring. I cannot say that enough. I have a mentoring program. So if there's anyone in this room who wants to be mentored in bug bounty, let me know. Or if you just want to learn the basics of like web app hacking, let me know. I will help you out. And last but not least, never feel alone. So I have DMs open on Twitter for anyone. If you ever feel like you need to talk to someone, I'm always there because I feel that's what we need to do as a community more than ever with mental health in the arena now. I have a video here. It is him doing a spoken word poem, but this is one of my mentees. He's 12 years old and he is becoming a really good hacker. Before that, he was kind of one of those kids in school that was rejected from his peers, his teachers, and all that. So I found him the perfect thing, which is InfoSec, because we're all rebellious, right? But if you want to hear it, feel free to come up afterwards, and I can play it for you. Because I don't think you're going to be able to hear that. Most importantly, networking. I didn't have a good network last year. But now I do, a supportive network. So having a support network is going to be great. And if you don't know anyone who can be a mentor or you want a support group, come up to me. I will help you out, I promise. And last but not least, speak up together. When it comes to sexual harassment, gender discrimination, or anything on those works, always go with another person. Never speak alone because people do get let go because of it. Go to conferences like this that support diversity and inclusion. That's really important. Like RSA last year was terrible for inclusion and diversity. They got really bad heat for it, bad PR, and our SA happened at the same time, and it was a way of a protest. And guess what? This year they changed more than ever. They actually gave women in security a free space. So we had free space for that could fit up to 2,000 people, which is fantastic. They also gave us 100 tickets to give away for free to any woman who wanted to attend. They did absolutely a great job this year, huge steps for them, and that's what it takes. It's to get people together and push them to make a difference. Also push for a diverse CFP review board. If that means blind review, that's cool, but also having other organizations part of it is going to be great too. But most importantly, I want to just say the change starts with you and me. And that's what we realized in that activity. When we start looking at each other that we're kind of connected, that's going to be the greatest thing ever. But I want to open the floor to you guys. Does anyone have any questions? I can wait up here for a minute if you like. While you're thinking of questions, or you want to come up to me directly, that's fine. But I do have stickers. I have Bugcrowd stickers as promised, and Disclose.io stickers, yeah. So if you want any stickers, feel free to come up to me and talk to me or ask any questions. I am here. And last but not least, if there's anyone in here who is interested in getting involved with bug bounty, feel free to come up to me. I do have some invites. So if you want some invites, come up, or if you're looking into a program, feel free to come up and ask any questions. And last but not least, check out Disclose.io. Disclose.io is a project that provides standard vulnerability disclosure language, which is fantastic if you want to practice safe harbor at your company. And last but not least, there is a list, so hackers can know who to contact and know what they're going to get for a reward if they do a submission. So once again, it's giving back to the community and practicing safe harbor. So I just want to say thank you for existing, and thank you, LayerOne, for having me here. It's fantastic, and feel free to follow me if you like. And I always do this thing at the very end. If you can guess what my favorite book is and DM me first on Twitter, you will get a prize. So yeah, thank you so much, you guys.